Well, Steve, I'd say 9. I grew up in a small town, and I don't know if you grew up in a small town, but I wanted to have haunted houses. You know, that in every movie there's always a haunted house. And there were a couple of places in my town that I felt could have qualified. There was one house sort of the end of the main street, sort of behind, about a block behind the main street, that looked like it should have been a haunted house. We used to pretend it was haunted. We had to walk past it. We were scared. We used to tell stories about it. But I don't think there was any real story behind it. There was another house that was out by the beach called Marion Villa. I probably shouldn't mention that by name, but there were rumours that that was haunted. It was one of the oldest houses in the town. It had been built as a holiday house by some important general or something once upon a time. And there were rumours that people had died there. There were rumours that someone had killed themselves in the basement, committed suicide. I don't know if that was true. I don't know if there is an actual basement. I know there are some little windows on the house that look like there's a basement, but it's very rare for there to be a basement or for someone to build a basement in Australia. We don't really have basements. I've never been into the house. I've only been in the yard and not fully into the yard because one of my relatives used to actually clean the house on their holidays once to make money when they were younger, and they had some stories and things they'd been told. But when someone was talking about the house on a Facebook site for the town, I commented and said just some of the things I'd heard when I was younger, and they eliminated me from the group. Now, whether this was the real estate that was unhappy because they don't want they don't want stories about this house because obviously they're trying to sell it or use it as a tourist location, I'm not sure. But I got kicked out of the group for just mentioning that when I was a kid it was rumoured that the house was haunted and that someone had killed themselves in the house. And like I said, it was just rumours. I never knew it was true or not. And then there was another house behind where I lived. There was this large sort of woodland area at the edge of the town. The sort of main sort of street would go out of the town and sort of turn around this. And there was like a motel in the corner, and there's this large sort of area. And we would run through when we do our track and field. We'd use that area, and the cemetery was on the other side, and there was an old dirt road that led up to the back of the cemetery, and it was all very creepy. And rumours were that there was a house in there, that someone lived in there. And when we went on our track and field, we were told we had to go a certain way because we couldn't go near the house. And I'd never seen the house. I always wanted to see this house. I thought it must be haunted. Of course, it's in the dark woods. It's a dark house in the dark woods that we never ever saw. And then one day there was a fire, and a lot of the in which we actually went to watch the fire. Half the town went to watch the fire. My brother and I walked up this street to sort of watch the fire, and this area, a lot of it had burned, and they tore a lot of the trees down. And then we finally saw the house. There was this big open area, and I think there had always been like an open area around this house, but it always had just all these trees around it, but a lot of them had burned down. They tore them down, and we finally saw this house, and it did look like a little old haunted house out in the woods. And now when you go in the town, you sort of see this little house sort of up sort of in the wooden sort of area apart from the rest of the town. And it looks kind of creepy, but I don't know if it was ever haunted. But when I was a kid, I thought it was. So yeah, I don't have a story of a haunted house in my hometown. Not a confirmed one. Just a couple of rumours. Now, I know I did have an experience with an old house that my brother lived in, was renovating. I think he's sold now because his wife and him split. I think he lives in Launceston with one of his daughters now. So I probably can talk about that house now because they're not living in it and they don't have to sell it. But that's another story. But so far as my town, yeah, I was disappointed my town never had a legitimate haunted house with, a story. Now my sister lived in a A-frame, a 3-story A-frame, which had some sort of square windows, which reminded me of the Amityville house when I was growing up, and she used to joke that it was her Amityville mansion. And it was one of the only 3-story houses in the town because there are only a couple of 2-story houses. My town was very much, a lot of Australian towns, we have space so we spread out. We don't have basements, we don't have attics, we don't have second floors. For the most part, we all just have, one floor, and we build onto the back of the house. Some people build up because they don't want to lose their yard space. But for the most part, the house was all pretty much the same. And that house felt special. And it had like a trap door that went into the attic and everything. So that was fun, but still not really haunted. There were some stories my sister told, but there certainly wasn't a neighborhood legend or anything. So yeah, so that's my unhaunted small town that I grew up in. I'd love if anyone has any actual stories about the town, Georgetown, Tasmania, to share. I haven't heard any, but I'm going to do some research at some point. I researched some of the older buildings and the history of the town a little bit, but there weren't any really juicy or interesting stories. A lot of history, but not any real fun stories. So I'm just going to leave it there. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. If you have any haunted stories from your childhood, feel free to share them with me. Thanks, bye.